Nationalism, or as I like to call it, my country number one, my country number one, my country number one. That's right, it's time to slap on some face paint, dig up your country's totally not made up 5,000 years of history, and scream at a flag while your infrastructure collapses like a cheap lawn chair during monsoon season. Nationalism, in theory, is the belief that your country is the greatest country on earth solely because you were born there, and then demanding a parade for it. It's basically RNG-based tribalism with a fresh coat of propaganda and several thousand war crimes attached. But before we dive headfirst into this steaming crockpot of delusion, let's make one thing clear. I'm not talking about patriotism. Patriotism is when you love your country, nothing wrong in that. Nationalism is when you think your country should invade everyone else's. Let's rewind to the early 19th century, back when the average European wore wool, smelled like cheese, and had never seen a toothbrush. I'm glad to see they've kept up with some of their past tradition. The Napoleonic Wars had ended, borders were redrawn like a toddler with a crayon, and suddenly everyone started getting sentimental about their people and their land. You know, the same land their monarch had spent the last 400 years using as a personal Game of Thrones LARP. Nationalism was born from Romanticism, which is hilariously ironic considering neither concept has ever led to anything resembling a functional relationship. Some German philosophers, I assume, were like, what if a nation had a living spirit and a soul? And some guy in France said, sounds gay, but okay. And next thing you know, every Balkan peasant thinks he's a descendant of Alexander the Great. Fast forward to the 20th century, and nationalism has become the ideological equivalent of meth, cheap, addictive, and guaranteed to ruin your neighborhood. Now, if you would allow me to get into the mechanics of nationalism. Step 1. Identify arbitrary border. Bonus points if it was drawn by colonizers with no ruler, a bottle of gin, and zero context. Step 2. Mythologize the past. Ah yes, the great civilization of insert name here, which totally existed for thousands of years and was definitely not 3 goat herders and a guy with syphilis. Step 3. Blame outsiders. Nothing says national unity like scapegoating a minority group for every economic, social, or personal inconvenience. Military parade. We've seen it coming, we all know, because nothing says competence like marching nuclear warheads down Main Street while your hospitals can't afford to keep the lights on. To be honest, the mechanics are quite simple. Add nationalism to any socio-political system and watch as it transforms from functional democracy to 1950s cosplay with better guns. Now, I am a fair man at heart, so I tend to try to see both sides of the story. Nationalism does come with some perks, like the kind of perks you get from a cursed artifact in a roguelike. Powerful, but you'll wish you never equipped it. National unity goes up by 50%. During crisis, nationalism functions like emotional superglue. Everyone suddenly forgets they hate each other and starts yelling in unison. Propaganda goes up 100%. Nationalism allows any government, no matter how incompetent, to wrap itself in the flag and declare itself righteous. You can't criticize the state, that's treason, but you can die for it. Isn't that sweet? The debuff is where the fun actually begins. Critical thinking goes down by 90%. Once nationalism sets in, facts become suggestions. Our GDP is collapsing, lies by the globalists. The ice caps are melting. Global warming was invented by foreigners to weaken us. Every issue becomes a foreign plot. Xenophobia goes up by a stupid number, 200%. Nationalism turns neighbors into potential invaders and immigrants into foreign sleeper agents. Suddenly, your Aunt Karen with the Facebook account is convinced that kids crossing the border are trained sleeper agents. Diplomatic relations go down in the dumpster. When nationalism peaks, diplomacy dies. Treaties become optional. Every summit becomes a flex-off. Every peace talk becomes a prelude to war. IQ tends to tank as well. Nationalism and the internet go together like uranium and drinking water. Enter the forums and you'll find flags and usernames and their avatars and posts like my country invented bread, fire, and the sun, and yours invented being poor. Thanks user Patriot 42069 raw. And the current patch, nationalism is once again meta. And like all dominant strategies, it's annoying, overpowered, and deeply unbalanced. Just look around, from the Brexit cosplay in the UK to make insert country great again expansions globally. The modern nationalist playbook is basically DLC for insecure people. They say things like, we need to take back our country. Back from who? Back from who, I ask. It's the ultimate coping mechanism for people who can't accept that the world is changing, that borders are just fancy lines on a map, and that your ancient culture might have peaked when leech therapy was still state-of-the-art medicine. Nationalism gives the illusion of control. No, we're not in decline. It's the fault of those other people. It's a form of mental comfort food, but like all comfort food, it leads to bloating, heart disease, and extremely questionable takes on cancer. The best part, governments can weaponize nationalism to do anything. Invade a neighbor, just say it's historical reclamation. Suppress dissent, just call critics foreign agents. Burn down a rainforest, it's ours. We can do what we want to do with it. And if the population is starving, no problem. For a military parade, let's be charitable and say nationalism can occasionally be used for good. Anti-colonial movement used it to rally unity. Resistance fighters used it to keep going. Even the French used it once to invent democracy, then immediately ruined it several times. But let's not kid ourselves. The half-life on positive nationalism is about as long as a TikTok trend. What starts as a movement for dignity rapidly devolves into us good, them bad, then escalates into us invade them, and finally ends in them retaliate us cry. Now, if you would like, we can go down the hall of shame. Germany 1930s, nationalism was at its peak, and what were the results? World War, 60 million dead, and decades of guilt so powerful they still flinch when someone raises their hand. United States 2001 to currently active. Nationalism transformed from unity after 9/11 into a full-blown hallmark war simulator, now featuring drone strikes, airport fondling, and conspiracy theories where the moon is somehow to blame. North Korea, again peak nationalism, textbook execution. Side effects include starvation, zero rights, and a haircut menu with only 15 government-approved hairstyles. Nationalism at its core is the emotional crutch of failing states, nostalgic empires, and angry dudes with too many flags in their bedrooms. It is the ideological equivalent of screaming, "My dad could beat up your dad," while your dad is passed out drunk on the porch. It's not a plan, it's not a system, it's not a belief, it's a cope, a massive industrial grade cope that lets people ignore systemic problems in favor of feel-good fairy tales about destiny, glory, and the eternal greatness of the fatherland or the motherland. In the end, nationalism will not save your economy, it will not fix your education system, it will not repair your roads, but it will give you a dopamine hit every time someone waves a flag, and isn't that all that really matters? On the patented mostly child scale, out of 5 stars, I give nationalism 1.7 stars out of 5. 1 star for historical relevance, half a star for emotional manipulation potential, and 0.2 stars for cool flags, I guess, and minus 3.5 stars for long-term geopolitical stupidity. Congratulations, you are now slightly more cynical, slightly more aware that nationalism is a loot box filled with expired coupons, broken promises, and the occasional war crime.